Hi, and welcome to part 3 of the Funkie Junkie Saturday Showcase. We're here at the Crafty Corner, and I'm going to be showing you another set of technique cards. Then we're going to take a tour through the index file box that we have altered. So if you'd like to find out which materials I'm going to be using for the technique cards, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Now let's go ahead and start working on some more technique cards. We're using the Idea-ology file cards, and we're going to start off with some simple ink blending. This is one of the basic distress ink techniques, and sometimes I need a little reminder of all of those fun things that are in the toolbox, but I don't necessarily think of when I am creating. So simply, I'm going to just start with 3 colors of distress ink. I'm going to be using picked raspberry, mustard seed, and mermaid lagoon. We're just going to lay down a simple blend. I'm using dome foam. Dome foam definitely makes blending a much more enjoyable experience. And we'll go in with some mustard seed. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm also going to lay down a little strip of a grippy stuff. So let's just put that there so our project will not wander off on us, and we shall continue blending. Okay, now mustard seed. We'll just move everything up just a little bit so we're in frame. Good. And we'll just add the mustard seed in, blend it in. We're going to get a lovely rainbow gradient since I'm overlapping the picked raspberry with the mustard seed. All right, very good. Moving on. Now a touch of mermaid lagoon. And we'll just gently blend that in over here. And we're getting a nice little green gradient as well. Okay, I'm losing a little bit of that mustard seed, but not a big deal. We just go back in and add a little bit more. Good. Simple blend. Ooh, fingerprints, but that's easy to blend out. Okay, with this simple blend, I'm just going to add a few water droplets. This is a quick and easy way to get a fun background. I'm just gently squeezing the trigger of the distress sprayer, and immediately we get beautiful water droplets. All right, give me a moment, I'll dry this off and we'll come back and see the finished results. I decided to just dry this off a little bit, and we're going to take a ink splotch towel and just absorb the rest of the water. And there we go, easy finished background. So I'll just go ahead and give this a quick label to remind myself what I did and to use this technique on future projects. So we have ink blend and water drip. Drip plus dry. There, now we have a nice little reminder of a technique that I must remember to use in the future. Okay, moving on to the next technique card. This should be another very familiar technique, and it's one of my favorites. We are simply going to be taking some ink and smushing it onto the craft mat. This is the ink smush and dip. This is one of the techniques that Tim frequently shows us when demoing distress inks. Definitely a favorite and absolutely a classic, so it had to be included in my quick little file card set of tips and tricks. So, smushing down the ink, going in, giving it a quick spritz, and dip. Lift up, nice and simple. And if we want the ink to move, well, we move the card. Okay, I'm going to add a little water on here. Getting some good movement. And we'll go ahead and put the rest of this on fast forward as we dry, dip, rinse, and repeat. Here is our finished ink drip background. We have beautiful layers of ink. We've got a little bit of water splatter going on, and this is just plain fun. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one over and label it on the back. Ink drip and squish. All right, next technique card. So this is going to be very similar, but this time we're going to be adding an accent of a contrasting color. In this case, Distress Oxide Iced Spruce. So again, I'm going to be laying down Distress ink. This time I'm going to be going heavier on the Picked Raspberry and the Mermaid Lagoon with just a small bit of mustard seed. So again, spritz it with water, make our initial dip, and we'll go ahead and put the rest of this on fast forward as we transform this card and add in a contrasting color in oxide. This card is Distress ink with oxide over the top. The technique was laying a foundation of Distress ink and then adding a contrasting color of Distress oxide over the top to get this really neat layered look. So let's go ahead and label this technique card over here. Distress ink and contrasting Distress oxide. Okay, now let's move on to another technique. This one we're going to be looking at the Distress Reinkers. So I like to store the Reinkers in this Reinker Tim Holtz ink palette, and we're going to stamp an image and we're going to emboss the image. And then using the embossed lines, we'll be able to paint the image onto the card. For the outline, we're going to be using Floral Outlines CMS 430. And I'm going to be using the stamp. So first, we're going to quickly mount that on a stamping block. And then we're going to stamp with embossing ink onto the card. Quickly stamp that out here, and then I will go in with some Ranger Fine clear embossing powder to give us an outline to work with. All right, let's go ahead and stamp that down. Okay, applying good firm pressure and lifting. Okay, stick some paper under there and add the clear embossing powder. Okay, and we'll just give that a light tap. Okay, so I will go ahead and emboss this and we'll be right back to start doing some watercoloring. Okay, and our image is embossed. So let's just bring the camera down a little bit and we'll go ahead and start adding in a bit of ink. So when I'm watercoloring, I like to use the Reinker Tim Holtz Fine Line water brush, and we'll just open up the ink palette and choose a few colors. I'm going to start with a little bit of Twisted Citron. We're going to use that for the leaves, and pretty simple. We just add in the ink. But you know what? I'm kind of thinking I want to spritz this first and see if I can't get some more ink flow. Going for a little bit more of a watery look. So the card is now wet, and look at that. The ink just spreads out beautifully. Okay. So while I'm watercoloring this, let's go ahead and put it on fast forward and see how it looks at the end. And here are the finished results for our watercolor and Reinker technique card. So the outlines that were embossed have helped the watercolor stay exactly where we want it to, and it gives us a really neat textural look to it. So let's set this one aside, and I will label that later after it's completely dry and move on to our next technique. Next, we're going to look at watercolor stamping. So we're putting down another technique card, and I'm going to be taking this stamp from the stamp set faded type, which is CMS 397. So this time I'm going to be pulling out some of the mini distress inks, and we're going to do a little bit of abstract color on here. Just gonna put down color and not really paying attention to where it is. We just want to have color on here. So just adding bits of color here and there. I'm going to tilt this and make sure that I've got ink everywhere. Ooh, almost. Using the little cubes, they are easier to manipulate and to get ink into different spots on your stamp. Okay, that is looking pretty well covered. Now I'm going to take the water mister and I'm going to lightly spray over the top of the stamp, and then we'll stamp it down. All right, perfect. So we're just going to take this, line it up, and stamp. Hold it for a second, and lift. And now we have a watercolor inked stamped image. All right, let me go ahead and dry this off, and then we'll take a second look. And here it is, all dry. We have the great watercolor look, and we didn't actually watercolor. We just used some ink pads and a stamp, spritzed a little water, and we get the awesome watercolor effect. So I will go ahead and label this on the back of the card. This is Distress Watercolor Stamping. Okay, so we'll set this one aside. Now let's change mediums. Next, we're going to look at Idea-ology. And specifically in Idea-ology, we're going to be looking at paper dolls. So I've already gone ahead and selected a few paper dolls for us to work with. And each one is attached to a little card. So we're just going to peel this off. I attached a little bit of foam on the back just to stick it down so it would have a place to hang out. And now let's go ahead and start altering these. Also, I die cut these tags using one of these Sizzix Tim Holtz die cut sets tag. And it was the perfect size to fit a paper doll on. And we also can slip them into these little index card sleeves. We're going to alter the paper dolls first, and then I'll come back later and show you how I have altered the little holders as well. Okay, let's start altering some paper dolls. So the simplest way to alter a paper doll is going to be with Glaze. Now we have so many different wonderful new glazes to play with. Oh, I think I'm going to go with some Salty Ocean. It's a good vibrant color. So very simply, we're just going to take our Distress embossing pen and we're going to color over the areas on this paper doll that we want to have embossing powder stick to. So let's go in a little bit closer, and we're just going to scribble some distress ink on. And I'll just try to carefully go around the edges of the collar. I would like to try to keep that part completely white. Okay, working our way down. All right, it's looking pretty good. So next I will pick this up and tilt it to make sure that I've got embossing ink everywhere I want it. missed a spot. By tilting this at an angle, it's very easy to see where the ink has not been applied. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead, bring our scrap paper in, and add the embossing powder. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I am going to go in with a brush and carefully brush away the little specks that I don't want. There. Just like that. It's pretty good, and just a little bit down here. Okay, now we'll just set that aside for a moment, and we'll put the rest of the powder back into the jar. And then, of course, I will close up the jar because, knowing me, I'll probably knock it over if I don't put a lid on it. Okay, good. Closing the jar. Now, I'll just put this on fast forward for a moment while we emboss this. And here is our first altered paper doll. So all we did was add some distress embossing ink, and then we sprinkled on some glaze. In this case, we used Salty Ocean. And then I did a little bit of cleanup with a paintbrush, and I'm also able to move a little bit of the embossing glaze that went where it shouldn't just by using my fingernail. Okay, let's move on and work on our next alteration. So for the next paper doll that we're going to be altering, I'm going to be using some Distress Crayon. So there's our paper doll. For Distress Crayon, I'm going to be pulling out a few colors, and we're going to be applying the Distress Crayon onto the paper doll using the water brush. Pretty simple. I think for colors, we're going to be using Dusty Concord, Tattered Rose, and a touch of Chipped Sapphire. So with these, I'm going to move the camera over just a little bit so we can see the corner of the craft mat, and I'm going to scribble down the Distress Crayon. Okay, and now I'll show you a little bit with the water brush, and then we'll put the rest on fast forward momentarily. So to start, I like to start with the face first. So I'm dipping into Tattered Rose, smooshing around the Distress Crayon, and getting the water brush full of pigment. Okay, that looks good. I've got plenty of Distress Crayon on the paintbrush, so I'm going to lift the paper doll up so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better, and we're going to gently tap this on. I don't really want to paint this on because when you paint it on, then you kind of remove the Distress Crayon that you've already put down on the first time round. So we're just going to lightly tap this on to get our layer of pigment. We're not really painting, we're kind of tinting. Okay, that's good. I'm going to let that dry. Then I'll come back and tap on a little bit more color. So let's move down to the hands. I'll just push the pigment on. That layer's going on really well. And I'm also going to try to avoid any chunky bits of undissolved Distress Crayon. Okay, let's turn. We'll work on this hand. Again, just lightly tapping on the color and brushing off any chunky bits that have gathered. All right, let's turn back over here. I want to add just a little bit more color to her face. And I'm carefully tapping so I don't accidentally wipe out the work I've already done. Okay, thinking I'm pretty happy with this. It's really hard to tell until everything's dry. All right, definitely happy with the way the hands have turned out. So let's go ahead and put the rest of this on fast forward as I work on her dress. Here is the finished paper doll, altered with distress crayon. We used some chipped sapphire, some dusty concord, and a touch of tattered rose to get these colors. So, not bad, pretty easy. Add on with the distress water brush, and after it's dry, I like to go in and smudge with my finger. I think it gives it a little bit more of a vintagey look. It looks a little bit more worn, like something cut out of a catalog. Okay, moving on to our next alteration. We're going to be using an older product. I decided that I also wanted to do some altering with distress markers. Now, these are something I've had in my stash for a while, and well, I really enjoy using them, and I'm betting there are more people besides me who have these stashed away, so why not use them to make a few alterations? So, grabbing the markers, we're going to be using Tattered Rose, Stormy Sky, and Gathered Twigs, and Frayed Burlap. Okay, let's go ahead and see what we can do with the distress markers. I haven't done this in a while, so I think I'm probably going to color directly onto the paper doll and then maybe fade out the colors a little bit with the distress water brush. So let's start and add a little bit of hair color. Just scribble that on. That works. I'll let that dry and then I'll play around with the water brush. I think I'd like to try to transform the suit into kind of a bluish color. So let's go in with Stormy Skies and see what happens. Ooh, that is giving it a really nice tint. I like that. Maybe I won't need to use the water brush, but we'll just play around and see what happens. So far, I'm really liking this. It's definitely giving it a more vintagey look, kind of like actual photo tinting. It's very subtle, so that is pretty neat. Okay. All right, I think I want to go in with a second blue and try to darken that up a little bit. Let's see. I've also got faded jeans. That should give us a similar color. Oh, yeah, that works really well. Okay, so going in with faded jeans on top of the Stormy Skies. All right. Next, I'm going to go in with Tattered Rose. And we'll see if we can't tint the hands and face a little bit. Okay, I like the look that's giving. So Tattered Rose is next. Oh, very subtle, but it is working. Oh, wow. This is really good. I have got to remember to pull out my distress markers more often and use them. Okay, now let's go for some frayed burlap. Okay, ooh, it's working really well. Nice, and I think I'll do the hat the same color. And a little bit of frayed burlap added into the hair. Okay, there we go, altering with distress markers. Definitely an old favorite, also a good thing to pull out and use. All right, note to self, use more distress markers. Okay, so let's go ahead, we'll set this one aside. Now onto our last paper doll alteration. This time we're going to be pulling out frosted crystal, and we're going to be using distress reinkers with it. So again, I will be pulling out the embossing pen. We will add, actually, you know what? This is a large space. I don't need the embossing pen. We can go in with the embossing dabber instead, since we're going to be covering all of this paper doll with frosted crystal. So I'll just swirl that on here. Pick this up. Make sure we have good coverage. I think that's pretty good. Okay, now I'll come back in with the scrap paper. We'll set the distress embossing dabber aside for the moment, and let's go ahead and grab some frosted crystal. So we'll just dump this on here. All right, pick this up, shake off the extra. Good, set that down, put the extra back into the container. Good. And I'll be back in just a moment after we have heat embossed our paper doll. Okay, we have now embossed the frosted crystal, and as you can see, we've got this really cool crystal textured look over this paper doll. And best yet, the frosted crystal is going to give us the ability to go in with distress reinkers. The crystal gives the paper doll some grip and the ability to hold on to the ink. So this time I'm going to be going for a green dress. We're going to go in with some rustic wilderness. We're just going to dab that on here. Yeah, just like that. Nice and easy. And since this is transparent, all the detail of the paper doll is going to shine through the ink. So we'll just go all the way around and color in this dress. Then I think I'll go back and add a few details to her hair and face and hands. I think frosted crystal and the distress markers are probably the two quickest ways for altering a paper doll. Glaze is relatively quick too, but I like this method and the marker method for more detail. I find it's easy to go in with the water brush and color these in. All right, that is looking really good. The detail in the dress is shining. So let's go ahead, grab a little bit of Tattered Rose. We'll do her face and hands, and then I will go back and pick a color for her hair. I will just gently dab that on. Oh, that is, that's a lot more vibrant than I intended it to be. So let's see if I can't fade that out a little. That's better. Maybe if I dab some water on, I can, there we go. Much better. Just a little bit of the Tattered Rose in its concentrated form goes a long way. All right, There. Much happier with that. And let's go in with a dash of Fossilized Amber for hair color. Ooh, that looks really neat. Okay, well, I've got a little bit of bleed through, but not a problem. I can gently remove that with a little dash of water and a touch more Tattered Rose. Oh, some of the green blood. I can go in with water and push that back. Good. Touch more of Tattered Rose, and I would call this done. Okay, and here is our finished altered paper doll using Distress Reinkers and Frosted Crystal embossing ink. Okay, I'll be back in just a moment and I will show you how I decided to alter the little file folios. Let's go ahead and alter one of these file folders. To do that, I'm going to be collaging the outside with some of the Tim Holtz collage paper. I'm using an older roll, and this is from the set Travel. So we'll just tear off a chunk, and then I'm just going to rip this up into smaller chunks. No rhyme or reason for size, just ripping it up so I have something to work with. Okay. Now, grabbing some collage medium, we're just going to smear that over the front of this little pocket, and then we will start sticking down pieces. Okay, so I'm kind of going to fit this together a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. So just a little bit here, a little bit there, and stuff hangs off the edges. That is absolutely okay, because we can take that and fold it over to the other side. Okay, that's good. Adding another layer of collage medium over the top of that. Let's stick this piece right in the middle. Good. Ooh, got a little corner that needs covering. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this side. I'm just going to smear down the corners, make sure the collage medium is everywhere. We'll flip it over, and we will tuck these little edges in. So start at the bottom, flip it up, smooth it down, take the edge, smooth it over. Nice and easy. Okay, and a little spot to tuck behind. Good. More collage medium. Spread that out. Tuck our sides. This side as well, flipping that over. Good. And let's fill in the gaps in the middle. Just like that. Smush the collage medium down, and we have just a little spot to cover up. Perfect. All right, so I just have a couple of edges to smooth over, and then I will tuck the edges down around the rounded part of this card holder. Just push that open, and then smush down the insides, just like that. Push, and then smush. Pretty easy. Okay, so now that we have the outside of this pocket covered, let's go ahead and do a little bit of embellishment. For embellishment, I have decided to run a band of washi tape around the middle of this index card holder. And we're going to use some of the Idea-ology marbled tape. So I have that, stick that down, flip it over, tuck the edges down, and then I will add one last little set of embellishments on the front. Okay, that's all lined up. Good, flip it to the other side. And the last piece of embellishment, we're going to be adding this little ephemera luggage tag. And then I've got a little gauge that we can add in as well. All right, I am liking this pretty well. Let's add on that last little piece of ephemera. Take that, a little collage medium, and stick that down. Perfect. So this is how I am altering the little index file card holders. Let's go ahead and put the rest of this on fast forward as I alter the rest of the index card file holders. All right, let's take a look at the index card holders that we just finished. So here's this one. Got aviary on here. Then we've got, this one is some botanical. Next we've got some wildflowers. And our last one has travel on it. Okay, so these are all set. We'll set these aside. Now, let's alter our tags for a backdrop to place our paper dolls on. Here I'm using collage paper to give myself a background to add some ephemera to. For giving the paper dolls a background, I decided to collage the tags using some of the Tim Holtz Idea-ology collage paper. Now we're going to have some fun and add some embellishments to these. I will do one in real time and then the rest we will set on fast forward. So I think I'm going to embellish this one first. So I've got a whole stash of Idea-ology parts and pieces off to the side. I'm going to pull from these and see what happens. So I'm just looking for parts and pieces, and we're just going to have some fun and make some layers. Just using collage medium, and I'm using my finger since I don't mind getting a little bit messy with collaging. And I always find that using my finger is easier since I can tell where I've put down collage medium and where I haven't yet. So let's have some fun and collage. Okay. It's okay to have some pieces hanging off the edges, not a big deal, because once these are dry, I can always go back in and snip pieces off. Let's see. I need something else in that corner. Oh, there we go. Nice little number snippet. I can stick that right under there. Okay, I am pretty happy with this one. Since the main focal point is the paper doll, I don't really need to do too much more. So let's grab that paper doll and stick it down. Okay, so I've got the paper doll, and we're just going to put him right here. Perfect. So I'll set that off to the side for the moment and let the pieces dry. All right, let's put the rest of these on fast forward as we have fun with collage. All right, let's take a look at our tags. These are all nice and dry. Now we just need to do a little bit of trimming. So I'm just taking the large Tim Holtz scissors and we'll give that a quick trim. Okay, that looks like it should be okay. And I'm just going to double check to make sure that it's going to fit back in its little sleeve. And yes, that'll fit perfectly. So I have these crinkle ribbons dyed in some different colors. We have Hocus Pocus, one of the distressed mica spray stains. As you can see, there is a faint shimmer on the fabric, which is pretty cool. Then we have got some Squeezed Lemonade, Mermaid Lagoon, and a dash of Peppermint Stick, also from the Distress Mica Spray Stain. Can't see the shimmer too much, but there is a little bit there. I can definitely tell because it is coming off of my fingers. All right, so for this one, I'm going to use the pink ribbon. We'll just thread that through. And give a little twist, feed the ends back through, and there we go. So I also found in my stash, and these are from the new Idea-ology key sets, these fantastic keys. I decided to add a key to 2 of the paper doll projects, just for some added fun. So, of course, for the bird, fly is perfect. So I'm just going to thread the long string through there. I'm going to put that on here, and I decided to loop this around the tag. So I'll thread that back through here. All right, let's pull that so it's a little bit tighter. All right, that's good. And now I'm just going to wrap that around, and I will simply use a little bit of tape in the back to make sure that sticks. Okay. And for finishing touches, we'll just place this card in its little index card holder for the full effect. There we go. And that goes right in here. All right, let's go ahead and do our next index file. Next, let's take a look at this one. So again, we're going to cut off the extra bits. I think that should be thin enough to slip into the file. Let's double check. Not quite. I need to take a little bit more off on that sign. That's okay. Let's see. Does it fit now? Ooh, so close. All right. All right, that fits perfectly now. Let's go ahead and add some ribbon to that. I think we're going to use the one with Squeezed Lemonade. Just snip off that little string. Okay, and we'll feed the ribbon through. Nice and easy. Okay, and that tag is done. Let's go ahead and put it into the little file case. Perfect. All right, another one completed. Okay, next we're going to use this one, and for this piece I'm going to match it with the purple ribbon. Okay, take that, thread it through, and pull. Good. And this one is going to match up with this case. I don't think I need to do any trimming on this one. Oh, a couple of leaves. All right, give that a quick snip. Let's see how that works now. Perfect. And there we go. That fits in here. And now the last one. So again, we're going to be trimming off the edges, and I'm going to be using the blue ribbon this time. Okay, so this doesn't require too much trimming. We'll just snip off the top of that ruler. And this time I'm going to add the key first. This one I thought Curious would be perfect as an addition to this card. All right, just bring that through. Good. And I'm just going to loop it through one more time. Then I will tape it in the back. Okay, tape. Okay, good. And let's add the ribbon. Okay, last tag, all done. I'm loving the little extra that the key gives this. And we'll just slide this one into its case. Perfect. Okay, here are our 3 altered paper dolls in their little file folder cases. So much fun. All right, next we're going to be taking a tour through the index card box so we can get the full effect of all these little projects that we've done to fill it up. And here is our completed index card file box. We've got die cuts on the side paired with foundry wax. And on the inside of the box, we have a collection of swatch cards and technique cards. And we also even found some time to do some collaging and some techniques with paper dolls. Let's go ahead and take a quick overview of what's in the box. So, first card, we swatched out the Distress Ranger mediums, showing all of the wonderful things that they can do and what they do when color is added. Then we moved on to the Distress Ranger ink archivals. We have a full swatch book of the complete collection now. Next, we moved into Distress glazes. And here we go. These are all of the current glazes, and I've got room to add more when more colors come out. Then we have Distress glitters. These were pretty messy to put into a booklet, but we managed it. We've got swatches. We've got a little bit of paper in here for protection, and we even added in some of the micas. Moving on, we then worked on technique cards. We've got the Distress blending and water drip, Distress ink dip, spritz, and dry. We've got Distress ink with contrasting oxide over the top, watercoloring with Reinkers and an embossing resist, watercolor Distress stamping. Then we moved into texture paste cards. We've got regular texture paste sprinkled with Distress embossing glaze over the top. We've got Distress embossing glaze on top of opaque Distress crackle. Then we've got the new translucent crackle with Distress glazes over the top of that. After, we moved into altering paper dolls, and at the same time we did a little bit of collaging. So in here we have a collaged file card holder, and inside we have an altered paper doll. This one was altered with Distress frosted crystal. So pretty. And the cards slide right into their own little pocket. Then we've worked with the Distress glazes, and again we have some lovely collage elements. Here we were playing with collage papers in Idea-ology. And it also gave me an excuse to use up some more bits and pieces of ephemera and include some new pieces like the Idea-ology keys from this year's 2022 release. Next, we have a paper doll altered with distress crayon, and more fun collage elements. I also was able to dig into my stash of crinkle ribbon for an added embellishment. And last but not least, we also worked with distress markers. It's an old material that I'm betting many of us have it in our stash, so why not get it out and use it to alter a paper doll? This completes our index file card project. Thank you so much for joining me here today for the Funkie Junkie Saturday showcase. We hope that you have a fantastic weekend, and until next time, happy crafting.